when Kirk Frost and Rasheeda first burst onto the love and hip-hop scene. Fans thought they'd seen it all: the love, the fights, the scandals, and the unshakable bond that somehow survived every storm. But no one could have predicted this. After years of being the show's power couple, the duo everyone loved to hate and hated to love. They've dropped a bombshell that's shaking reality TV to its core. They're done, gone, walking away from the cameras that made them household names. But behind that decision lies a tangled web of betrayals, financial fights, broken friendships, and a final straw so explosive that not even VH1's producers could spin it into entertainment? This is the untold truth of why Kirk Frost and Rasheeda said goodbye to love and hip-hop. And it's far messier than you think. From the moment the news broke, social media went into meltdown. Twitter threads exploded with wild theories, Instagram lives turned into heated debates, and TikTok creators wasted no time piecing together clips from old episodes as if they were detectives solving a cold case. Some fans celebrated, calling it the end of a toxic era. Others mourned the loss of the drama and romance that had kept them glued to their screens for over a decade. But what no one realized at first was just how long this departure had been brewing, and how many behind-the-scenes battles had gone unseen. It all started months before cameras rolled on their final season, according to sources close to production. Rasheeda had grown increasingly frustrated with the way her personal life was being exploited for ratings. Season after season, her marriage to Kirk had been the center of scandal, from infidelity rumors to surprise baby drama. And while some storylines were rooted in truth, others were allegedly exaggerated or manipulated to fit the producers' vision. Rasheeda, who had built her brand as a businesswoman and entrepreneur, felt trapped in a cycle that constantly portrayed her as the betrayed wife or the forgiving spouse. She was tired of being a character in someone else's script. Meanwhile, Kirk had his own grievances. While the show gave him fame, it also painted him as the perennial villain, the cheating husband, the shady businessman, the man who could never quite be trusted. Off camera, Kirk was fighting battles that fans never saw: legal disputes, financial pressure from struggling ventures, and tensions with friends and family who didn't want their lives dragged into the public eye. The more the cameras rolled, the more Kirk felt like he was losing control over his own narrative by the time the final season began filming. Cracks in their relationship with the network had become impossible to hide. There were reported arguments with producers over scene setups, with Rasheeda allegedly refusing to film certain confrontations that she felt were staged. On one occasion, Kirk reportedly stormed off set after a producer suggested bringing in a former cast member known for stirring up old cheating rumors. That moment, insiders say, was when VH1 executives began quietly preparing for the possibility that the couple wouldn't return. But the real breaking point came during a cast trip to Miami, a trip that was supposed to be lighthearted and fun but quickly turned into a public war zone. Cameras caught an explosive argument between Rasheeda and another cast member over money, loyalty, and a long-forgotten business deal gone wrong. What fans didn't see in the edited episode was that the fight escalated off-camera, with Rasheeda threatening to walk off the show entirely. According to witnesses, Kirk stepped in to defuse the situation. But instead of calming things down, he ended up in his own shouting match with a producer. That night, both he and Rasheeda reportedly decided it was time to make a clean break. When filming wrapped, they didn't announce their decision right away. Instead, they took time to weigh their options. There were lucrative offers from other reality shows, brand partnerships to consider, and the looming question of how their exit would affect their public image. For Rasheeda, the choice was about protecting her peace. For Kirk, it was about reclaiming control over his reputation. Together, they agreed they would not return to love and hip-hop. And when the time came to tell the world they were ready for the backlash, the announcement came via a carefully worded Instagram post, a joint statement accompanied by a throwback photo of their very first reunion taping. In the caption, They thanked fans for years of support, acknowledged the ups and downs, and hinted at exciting new ventures ahead. But the part that caught everyone's attention was a single line. "It's time for us to tell our story on our terms." That one sentence sent shockwaves through the fan base. What did they mean by their terms? Is there more to the story than they were letting on? Okay. And if so, how much of what fans had seen over the years was even real? As the speculation grew, Kirk and Rasheeda stayed quiet, at least publicly. Behind the scenes, however, they were making moves that would prove they weren't leaving the spotlight, just changing the game entirely. When the announcement hit every major gossip blog, the industry chatter turned into a feeding frenzy. Comment sections lit up with arguments, some swearing that Kirk and Rasheeda were finally doing what was best for themselves, others claiming they were just running away from accountability. A former castmate even went live to say the couple was fronting for Instagram and that they'd be back on VH1. Within a year, once they realized how much they missed the checks, but those close to Kirk and Rasheeda knew this wasn't about money. In fact, the decision was costing them more than it was saving. Behind closed doors, they were turning down offers that most reality stars would kill for. There were proposals for a spin-off series, guest spots on other popular reality franchises, even a docu-series about Rasheeda's business empire. But each offer came with fine print. Full creative control would remain with the network or the production company, meaning they'd still be at the mercy of editors who could twist the narrative, after years of seeing how a single scene could be cut, rearranged, and turned into something completely different from reality. Neither Kirk nor Rasheeda was willing to give that power away again. The more they talked about it, the more they realized how much they'd sacrificed over the years. Kirk remembered family gatherings that turned into awkward interrogations because relatives had watched the latest episode and believed the drama was real. Rasheeda thought back to times she'd been in the middle of launching a new clothing line or beauty product, only to have it overshadowed by some on-screen storyline about her marriage. Their lives had become entertainment for millions, but in the process, they'd lost the privacy, peace, and authenticity they once valued. But if they were leaving love and hip-hop, they weren't leaving quietly. Whispers of tension between them and the network grew louder. The couple began plotting their next move. They started meeting with production companies, ones that promised they could retain full control over the footage, the edits, and the way their story was told. One pitch in particular caught their attention. A streaming platform was offering them a short-run docuseries focused on their real lives, no manufactured drama, no fake confrontations, just an unfiltered look at their businesses, family, and journey after VH1. This was exactly the kind of opportunity Rasheeda had been waiting for. She'd always wanted to show fans the hard work behind her brands, the hours spent running her boutiques, the pressure of balancing motherhood, marriage, and entrepreneurship. And Kirk, though wary of being back on camera, liked the idea of finally showing the side of himself the public rarely saw: the businessman, the father, the man who'd learned from his mistakes instead of repeating them. Meanwhile, Love and hip-hop producers weren't happy. Losing Kirk and Rasheeda meant losing one of the franchise's most recognizable couples, a duo who'd been there from the early days, anchoring some of its most talked-about moments. According to insiders, there were last-minute attempts to keep them on board. Bigger paychecks were offered, along with promises of lighter storylines and less personal drama. But for Kirk and Rasheeda, the damage had already been done. Too many broken promises. Too many moments where they'd been assured one thing only to see another play out on TV. As the months passed, the tension shifted from behind the scenes to public perception. Fans noticed how quiet the couple had become on set. They stopped appearing at certain events, skipped after parties, and in some cases refused to film scenes altogether. When reunion taping time rolled around, their energy was different. Calm, detached, almost as if they were already gone. That's when the rumors started swirling that their exit was going to be addressed at the reunion itself. The producers, of course, saw an opportunity. They wanted one last explosive moment, a farewell that would guarantee ratings. So when Kirk and Rasheeda sat down under the bright reunion lights, they were asked point blank by the host about the rumors. The air in the room shifted. The audience leaned forward. Every castmate's eyes were on them. And Rasheeda, never one to sugarcoat, told the truth in the simplest way possible. "We're done." The crowd erupted. Some gasped, others clapped, and a few castmates even smiled, perhaps relieved that the spotlight might shift away from them. Kirk nodded in agreement, adding that it was time for a new chapter, one where they could tell their own story without being edited into villains or victims. But the most telling part of the moment wasn't what they said. It was the look in their eyes. They weren't angry, bitter, or regretful. They looked free. That freedom didn't come without a cost. In the weeks after the reunion aired, they faced criticism from some fans who accused them of biting the hand that fed them. Others questioned whether they'd be able to maintain their relevance without the show. But instead of engaging in the online back and forth, Kirk and Rasheeda doubled down on their plan. They teased behind-the-scenes clips of their new project on Instagram, posted motivational captions about growth and change, and made it clear that whatever was coming next was going to be on their terms. By now, people were desperate to know what had really gone on behind the scenes. Has there been one final betrayal, a contract dispute, a personal conflict with another cast member? And while neither Kirk nor Rasheeda was ready to spill every detail, those close to them hinted that there was more to the story, something so personal and raw that revealing it on VH1 would have been unthinkable. That mystery only added to the anticipation for their next move. The couple knew they were playing a dangerous game. Walking away from a platform as big as Love and Hip Hop meant giving up the guaranteed exposure that kept their brands in the spotlight. But for the first time in years, it felt like they had control and they weren't about to give that up again. The closer their exit date came, the more the truth began to spill. Not in a single explosive reveal, but in whispers, cryptic posts, and quiet confirmations from people who had been there all along. Friends who had stayed silent during the chaos were now speaking up in private circles, saying the couple had endured more than anyone knew. The reality of life on Love and Hip Hop wasn't just about filming scenes. It was about living in a constant state of high alert, never sure when a phone call, a text, or a random pop-up from a producer would set off a chain reaction that could dominate the blogs by morning. It was a lifestyle that kept them on edge. And after so many years, the pressure had taken a toll on their mental and emotional health. Rasheeda had been the first to put words to it. One night, away from cameras, she told Kirk she felt like she had been performing her marriage instead of living it. Every conversation, every disagreement, every private moment seemed to come with a question. How will this look on TV? At first, Kirk brushed it off. They'd been in the public eye for so long that the idea of separating their real lives from their TV lives seemed impossible. But over time, he began to notice it too. The smallest arguments were magnified. Misunderstandings became storylines. And the moments that were supposed to be genuine anniversaries, business launches, family trips, were often drowned out by whatever drama the show needed at the time. The breaking point came not from a public fight, but from something painfully personal. During the final months of filming, a situation arose that involved their children, something the network allegedly wanted to incorporate into the storyline. To Kirk and Rasheeda, that was the line in the sand. They had always tried to shield their kids from the worst of the reality TV spotlight. And the thought of dragging them into manufactured drama was unacceptable. When producers pushed back, citing public interest and continuity, the couple didn't just resist, they began preparing to walk. That was the moment the decision became final. Once the cameras stopped rolling for good, the silence was almost jarring. No production schedule, no last-minute calls, no manufactured meetups with people they barely spoke to in real life. The air in their home felt lighter, calmer. Kirk, who had grown used to being painted as the villain, started reconnecting with friends and business partners who had distanced themselves because of the show's portrayal of him. Rasheeda threw herself into her work, revamping her clothing line, planning a new store opening, brainstorming ways to expand her brand without leaning on reality TV drama. Still, the entertainment world wasn't going to let them go without trying to pull them back in. Bloggers offered money for exclusive interviews. Podcast hosts wanted them to spill the real tea about castmates. Tabloid writers tried to bait them into feuds by publishing half-true stories about their exit. But Kirk and Rasheeda refused to give the easy sound bites. If they were going to tell the story, they were going to do it right on their own platform, on their own time. That's when the first real glimpse of their next chapter appeared. In a sleek, minute-long teaser posted to both of their Instagram accounts, fans saw flashes of Rasheeda walking through her boutique, Kirk in a recording studio, family dinners, business meetings, and quick shots of them traveling. The caption was simple: "Our story, uncut, coming soon." The post went viral within hours. The comment section exploded with excitement, skepticism, and curiosity. Some fans couldn't wait to see the unfiltered version of their lives, while others accused them of just swapping one form of reality TV for another. But whatever the opinion, one thing was clear: people were still watching. The couple had learned enough from their years on Love and Hip Hop to know that attention was a currency, and they were determined to spend it wisely. Instead of chasing the same formula that had both made and frustrated them, they were crafting something entirely different, a blend of business, family, and lifestyle content that showcased who they were without the artificial chaos. They were in talks with streaming platforms, brand partners, and independent filmmakers. They had even considered launching their own digital network, one that could host not only their show but other content from artists, entrepreneurs, and influencers who wanted to avoid the trap of traditional reality TV editing. Of course, not everyone from their past was rooting for them. Some former cast members saw their new venture as a betrayal, a move that suggested they were above the very show that had given them fame. Rumors began to swirl about old grudges and unpaid debts, with anonymous sources feeding gossip blogs stories designed to undermine their credibility. But if Kirk and Rasheeda were bothered, they didn't show it. They knew that the louder the noise got, the closer they were to something big. The irony wasn't lost on them. After all those years of being accused of staying on the show for the check, they were walking away from guaranteed money into something uncertain. But that uncertainty came with something priceless: control. For the first time in years, they could decide what parts of their lives the world saw. They could set boundaries without being accused of being difficult. They could tell their truth without waiting for it to survive a producer's editing room in their final interview. About Love and Hip Hop, given to a mainstream magazine just weeks before their new project was set to launch, Rasheeda summed it up perfectly: "You can't put a price on peace." We gave the show a lot of years, a lot of ourselves. But at some point, you have to ask, who's telling my story? If the answer isn't me, then it's time to move on. Kirk leaned in, nodding before adding his own final word on the matter. "We're not running away from anything. We're walking towards something better." It wasn't the explosive scandal fans had imagined, but it was the truth, and in a world built on spectacle, the truth was its own kind of power. By the time the first episode of their new series dropped, curiosity had reached a fever pitch. The premiere didn't open with a fight or a scandal. It opened with Kirk and Rasheeda at home, having breakfast with their kids. No producers, no scripts, no fake tension. It's just a family, finally living life on their own terms. And as the cameras rolled in that unfiltered light, it was clear that their exit from Love and Hip Hop wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a new one they were finally writing themselves. If you've been riding with Kirk Frost and Rasheeda since their very first appearance on Love and Hip Hop, then you already know this is more than just a TV couple. This is a journey. But now that they've walked away from the show that made them household names, the question is, What's next? You've just heard the real story, uncut and unapologetic. But there's so much more to come, and you do not want to miss a single update. So here's what you need to do. Smash that like button to show love for Rasheeda and Kirk's next chapter. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Were they right to leave? Or should they have stayed for the drama? Want to hear your take. And most importantly, subscribe right now with all notifications on, because we've got exclusive updates.